Hey everyone, it is Jeanette with Untamed and Unapologetic. Today I have Celia here with us. Did I do it right? Did I pronounce it right? I always ask how to pronounce names and then I forget how to pronounce them. So,
That's
yeah.
spot on.
Yes. I just met Celia right now. I'm so excited that she found me. So, Celia, tell them a little bit about how you found me and who you are.
So I am Celia Orsini. I am an archaeologist. I worked at first with funerary archaeology in the northeast of England and the southeast of Scotland. And what I loved about archaeology was identity creation and identity formation. I became really focused on that and very interested in understanding how we express ourselves and how we communicate who we are to each other and to other people. And so that's what I do. I met you through Speaker Hub. I'm always interested in finding speakers that are really open-minded and really fresh and not too academic. And I like the balance of being academic but being relatable and accessible. And that's how I found your podcast and I loved it. And that's why I contacted you.
Awesome. I'm so glad people are finding me in the other side of the world. You are from Frankfurt, correct?
So I am French originally, but yes, I
Okay.
live in Frankfurt at the minute. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That is so exciting. Yeah,
Bringing you an international audience.
I do. I love that. It's just every person that I meet, I feel like I have, like, we're always drawn to each other, right? For some reason in the world just kind of connects people. And I always find that anybody that comes across me or like reaches out to me, it's for a reason. And I don't know, maybe I'll be in Germany soon.
That would be lovely. I will bring you to the best place to eat cake. That would,
But I'm sure you are the only person that I know that probably knows the best cake in Germany.
well, you'll have to trust me then.
Yes. So tell me a little bit more. So when I was in college, I took one archaeology class and I loved it. Like it was so amazing just to know the history of the human race and how we've, like you said, it kind of tells a story. It tells our identity, but you can also see like the shifts in someone's identity as well whenever you're looking at artifacts or find a culture or something that you're looking for, right? Tell me a little bit about that and how it's connected to your business.
So I find that extremely interesting. I find the fact that we don't realize that we actually go through a lot of shifts during our life. We don't realize that we pass from the baby stage to the child stage to the young adult. But it's not often that we get to reflect on what happened to me when I went through this stage. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that's what we try to get to know when we discover cultures in archaeology and like past societies. We try to know as many things as we can, but we have a puzzle with tons of missing pieces. You will find some indicators and you find a lot of clues, but ultimately your interpretation remains your own because we don't get to know the truth. We just gather as much data as we can and we form an opinion on the information we gathered. And that's what is amazing about archaeology is that our opinions, our interpretations will change over time. Because of this accumulation of data, something new will come and change the status quo. And it's actually, some people say, oh, archaeologists are going to be really mad because now we found that women had swords. And actually, if you're an archaeologist, you're like, no, I'm not mad. I'm excited because archaeologists see those shifts as an opportunity to discover and to know more. When we look at people, they tell us, this is what I am, this is what I have always been, and there's no shift and there's no change, and this is me, and this is really firm. And I actually don't believe that. I believe identity is very fluid and changing and always malleable, and sometimes it's unconscious. Sometimes we do not do that consciously. We do not apply those change to our personality consciously, but they happen.
I'm really connecting pieces with you when you're speaking. So, like when you said earlier, like, what if they discovered that now women carried swords, right? It's not going to make you angry. It's going to make the story shift. It's
Yeah.
going to change the view around that time period and how women were viewed and how women viewed themselves, even. And so I love that idea of the fluidity of identity because, like you said, there's things that come into life and things that are getting discovered every single day, not only about ancient civilizations, but about ourselves.
Hmm.
And so we are never just one person all the time. And I know for myself, I've talked about like, I don't know, the me 20 years ago, you wouldn't recognize because her next to me
Yeah.
now, two completely different women. So tell me a little bit about you and your formation of your identity,
Yeah.
where you were this one person. Something happened, right? That shifted you to become who you are today.
So I am from a very open-minded family. There's no particular issue if you want to date or marry someone that belongs to another religion or another country. I don't come from a family where gender roles are extremely firm or strict or rigid. And it's great. You would think, what a lucky girl. She can be whatever she wants. She could have been
Yeah.
whatever she wanted. And it's true. But that meant I didn't question those things until at university they were put in front of me. So I find it extremely interesting to go to university and suddenly realize, wait, hold on. There's a gender theory? Tell me more. And you're 18 years old and you have no idea that I knew
Yeah.
of the systems and of some of the systematic issues. But I had never heard at 18, I had never heard of gender theory. And so I arrived and I looked at all those things that never came to my mind through because it was challenging everything I thought was true, sometimes confirming what I thought was true, but somehow it was giving me the keys to say, this is true because of that. I believe in equality. And actually, now I can defend my own opinion. So going through university for me was mind blowing. It was the best experience of some of the best years of my life. I loved it. And all that made me more and more curious about the world and the human beings that were populating this world. Now, archaeology for well-being came later on. So having people talk about mindfulness, having people talk about mental well-being and what it means and what's the definition of well-being and how can we approach this.
Yeah.
So all those kind of topics really interested me. And on top of that, I had a particularly strong attraction towards herbal remedies. Again, it started really, really young. When I finally finished my PhD, I was supposed to go on holiday with my soon-to-be husband. And I told him, right, I want to go on a holiday for 1 week. Nothing. I signed up for a class for a course to become herbal for herbal medicine.
Okay.
And so I took my material with me in my holiday. And it was great because it was just so refreshing. It was just so different than what I was doing every day for the past 6 years. So I was like, ooh, this is really brilliant. And my husband was laughing because he was saying, yeah, but you were supposed to do nothing. But
You're not supposed to do anything.
you were not supposed to do that. uh, so that started the idea that if only I could associate the two was really planted then. And then COVID hit just after I had given birth to my first daughter and I had moved away from my my community. So I was in London with a newborn and I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't, actually, let's be honest. And found myself extremely, extremely isolated. And I rediscovered I needed to find connection. I needed to find that something was missing clearly. And I was on maternity leave and I just couldn't bear it. But in the same time, I would never have wanted to go back to work because I was with my baby.
Yeah.
So I was really conflicted. There was something missing. There was a problem, like there was a tremendous problem. And I found a way to deal with that thanks to archaeology.
Mm.
Later on, when a friend of mine found herself in the exact same situation that I had been, and I talked about archaeology and how I had dealt with it, it became obvious that there was something there to be developed. There was a research program to be built around how archaeology could support your mental well-being.
Yeah.
That said, I did not come up with this entire idea all by myself and out of nowhere. There is a research trend that's about a good decade old,
Mhm.
and people have been exploring this aspect of culture, of art, of archaeology, and how to build activities and participatory activities that could support people's well-being. I'm not the inventor of these beautiful technique, but I am part of the movement.
Something that I connected with when you were talking about this journey of yours was this last piece where you were it was right I gave birth to in 2019. So in 2019 I had my son and then the world shut down and I felt lost. I felt
Mhm.
disconnected. Something that I've learned over the past 3 years is that we need community, right? We need sisterhood. We need each other to kind of band together and uplift each other because correct me if I'm wrong, but back in the old times in tribes or even in different cultures, women would come together with childbirth and with coming of age, like going through different stages
Yeah.
of life. And that was the thing that kind of helped just women grow in general.
Not just in for those particular stage. I believe in actually in community showing up on a
Mhm.
more routinely basis.
Basic.
And there's something really interesting that was happening about 100 years ago. So not so long ago, right?
No.
My mum's village in the southern part of the Alps, where there was things that needed to be done seasonally. So there were things like food produce that were to be done and dealt
Mhm.
with seasonally. And so there was those massive collective activities. And one
Yeah.
of those, it's going to sound silly because it sounds silly to me nowadays. I'm struggling to imagine it, but women from the entire village would meet and break walnuts together. So the
Yeah.
season of collecting walnut was a collective activity. You would dry your walnuts in your private drying storage. And then once the walnuts are dry, you
Mhm.
break the outer protection, the outer layer to get to the
Mhm.
walnut. And then either you keep some for yourself or most likely you're going to sell some. And
Mhm.
this was a group activity. And when I
Yeah.
mentioned this to a colleague of mine, she was from Poland and she was saying, well, actually 50 years ago, it still is, but 50 years ago, it was for everybody. We would meet for the sauerkraut production. So every
Mhm.
family would have the community gather around the cutting and the maceration of the coal of the how do you say that of the cabbage, the white cabbage
Uh-huh.
that will be sliced and then
Sour.
fed
Uh-huh.
for fermentation. And she clearly hated it. She was not fond of it. She did not remind she did not remember those moments fondly at all. But she was
No.
saying the only good part about this was meeting with our community and being
Yeah.
all together in one place doing one thing.
Yeah, there's
I
something
think
about community that's very healing and uplifting and I don't know, and so many I think especially in America, like Americanized culture is just like go by yourself, do it on your own. You don't need anybody. And I just don't believe in that because every time I've tried to do it on my own, I've hit a wall or I've fallen or I've become depressed or anxious and it's just the reaching out to others that heals that.
I believe you. I'm entirely with you on that. I
Yeah.
think we live in a strange, paradoxical world where we're hyper connected with everybody. Like, I recently realized that I was exchanging voice note with my best friend
Yeah.
for an entire day. We neither could not answer the phone and talk because we were doing something. So pressing the button and while working or while doing something, being able to just talk to my phone, press send. That was something I could manage.
Easier.
But picking up the phone and talking to her was just not possible at that time. I appreciate that. I appreciate being connected with her. But that exchange, however long it lasted, does not have the quality of meeting with her.
Face to
And
face.
I think our world of hyperconnectivity, our world of go for it, be bold, be strong, you can do it all by yourself. It is good and it is important, but we are lacking community support. We are lacking this strength of being able to rely on each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about this practice that you mentioned. So, in your business, you use archaeology and wellness to do what exactly?
Right. So there's two sides of the same coin, basically. So
Uh-huh.
what I try to bring in research teams or corporate teams, I'm invited to give workshops. In
Mhm.
those workshops, we will have different archaeologically inspired activities. So we will have a artifact handling session.
Okay.
We'll I want I want to say play around because it is supposed to be playful, but we'll
Uh-huh.
work with maps, a lot of photos to try to understand how identities are built. So the workshop are three tiers. The first one focuses on the individual, and on that session I talk about healing through time and how the concept of the body evolved through time, for example. The concept of disease and illness evolved through time and is still evolving nowadays. So we'll talk about those things, and in the same time, we'll have practical hands-on activities. So people don't actually feel like they're having a lecture. That's not the point. But through those activities, my point is to talk about our own identity, our own well-being on the very basic level, on the individual level. And then the second workshop, we talk about relationship. And it's
Mhm.
basically the same format, hands-on activity to understand how identity processes create groups and create group and communities, and those identities that are not built by themselves but on interrelationship.
Mhm.
And session talks a lot about, I use food and cooking to talk about that and about
Mhm.
those exchange, about how identity is never solely based on what you've inherited, but
Mhm.
is a mix of what you bring in through your own interaction, what you choose to ignore because you did not appreciate that in the past, or what you choose to keep because you did appreciate and you want to propagate this idea. So I talk about this collision point between tradition and innovation. And the third workshop is about how we shape our own environment, but the environment shapes us too. And so we'll talk about identity through activities using the landscape and how belonging to a landscape is a construct and tools to use to reinforce your own feeling of belonging within your own landscape. These
Yeah.
are my three tier workshop, really.
Okay. I like that idea of walking people through that journey. It's like a journey, like you said. It starts
Yeah, it really
and
is. Yeah. Well, people don't always know what archaeology is and
Mhm.
what an archaeologist do. And what I try to teach is that archaeology is about identity. Archaeology is studying how people organize their identity, how they organize their belonging, how they organize the support they needed. And this is exactly what we're asked to do when we raise a family or when we lead a team. We're asked to create a cohesive group, taking bits of information or bits of or people from a bit of everywhere. We put them
Yeah.
all in a bag and we say, here, now you have to function together. And actually, building this community is sometimes hard and takes work, but it's a skill. And so if it's a skill, you can practice it and you can improve it.
Yeah. I like that too in regards to something that kind of sparked my brain right now was having to create something, right? I am a leader in my business. And becoming that leader, I didn't know how to lead at the beginning. And so, like, the business has shifted over the past 8 years that I've been in business, but I had to be a boss. And in my mind, I didn't want to be a boss.
Yeah.
But also, when you're in a leadership position, you have to have some sort of authority and some sort of system in place, right? So that everybody works together for the
Mhm.
collective good. And so it took me many, many years to transform into the leader that I am today. Just along the process of like how to connect with my employees, how to show them that I care about them without making them feel overworked. Like, it's very complex. And I don't think anyone prepares an entrepreneur to become a leader in their businesses.
I don't think so. And I was having this conversation with a colleague
Mhm.
a couple of days ago where he was saying, but Celia, you say empathy is a skill. If in a world where empathy is a skill, why do empathy belong in corporate environment? And I was just telling him, well, because we confuse empathy with softness,
Mm.
with emotional weakness,
Yeah.
when actually this is something we can improve and practice upon. And we are basically trying to find patterns to be able to solve expectation or past conflict or informal hierarchy. Basically, empathy tells you to stand in someone else's shoes.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean you stand in his shoes and you cry with him.
Mm.
It means you understand even as partially as you can, because you'll never understand another person's
No.
experience perfectly. But just to shift your perspective of things, your perception of the situation, to be able to deal with the conflict or the expectations or the problem that you're having in a
Mhm.
better fashion. So empathy is not emotional weakness. It's an analytical strength. And that's
Yes.
why I think it should be taught to leaders. Leaders should practice their empathetic skills to be
Mhm.
able to solve those issues that they have in front of them. But I agree with you. It's rare to be trained to lead.
Yeah. Nobody trains you for that. And then you step into it. And then I also, the gender roles, right? That kind of comes into it also, because if you have a woman leader versus a man leader, your employees are going to react differently towards you, whether you're a woman or whether you're a man. And a lot of that empathy kind of comes into play too.
Yeah, one of my first team with me as team lead, I had to work with older people
Mhm.
and different gender, and they did not appreciate me
Yeah.
because they couldn't understand why I was there. And I think empathy is a strategy that helped me deal through those type of conflict, because I don't believe that you have to be close friend with everyone you work with.
Yeah.
If you are, it's great and it makes sense and makes things easier sometimes. But the point is not you making friends at work. The point is you getting the work done.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that too. I have a client that I've been seeing for a very long time as a therapist. She's doing great. But the one thing that we always go back at and laugh at is that when I started seeing this person, I was maybe 32. She was in her late 50s, early 60s. And the first thing she said was, "You're young. How are you going to know anything about the life that I've led?"
Yeah.
Is was the first thing she said. And so I told her, "I think you'll be surprised if you give me a chance."
Hmm.
It's not that I'm connecting to her. I'm understanding the situation. I'm walking in her shoes with her to help her see different perspectives of the life that she's currently living. And through that process, she's been able to grow.
That's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not a coach. I am not a psychologist. I've never been trained in psychology. I'm
Mhm.
very interested.
Yeah.
I would never be able to guide a person the way a psychologist would. And
Wow.
so I think what is really important for me to have is resources that I can
Mhm.
offer people that would come to me in pain, I think it's really important to highlight that, because that doesn't mean I don't believe that archaeology can help you improve your well-being. I think it really can.
I think so
But
too. Yeah.
if you need the extra support, if you need this a little bit more,
Hmm.
then you don't come to me. You go to a therapist, you go to your GPs, you go to your doctor, to your family doctor, and you seek help with the right people. I am happy to show you what you can do on top of that.
Yeah, and I can see where you're coming from with that, but on top of going to see you, come and see me, the therapist, go and
Exactly.
see the psychiatrist, go and see your general practice, because again, in community,
Exactly.
there's healing.
Yeah. And everyone has a place. And my
Exactly.
place might bring you a lot of curiosity, a lot of joy, a lot of,
Mhm,
but if you need the extra support, then you need to see someone that actually is trained to help you
mhm.
heal in that way. So
Yeah.
I really believe strongly in that. I think it doesn't diminish what I do.
Mm-mm.
It's just really separate. And
Yeah.
I think there's a complementary
Complimentary, like a
there's a
support?
complementary approach, yes, to this, to well-being. And
Yeah.
I'm really talking about mental well-being and not mental health, because
Yes.
I leave the mental health to you.
Yes, yes. And then the mental well-being, they kinda go hand in hand. I mean, yes, mental health, you need a little bit extra support sometimes. But even like to the professionals, like you, the archaeologist, me, the therapist, I think it's important for us as the professionals to connect with each other too. Because just in this conversation that I'm having now, I have learned so many things and I can connect pieces in the back of my head that I'm going to take and be able to use with somebody that's on their healing journey.
Yeah, I think it's tremendously helpful to be able to exchange with people
Mhm.
in, and just acknowledging I insist on that often, acknowledging the fact that I am not a psych a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Uh-huh.
It is important to me because I'm not taking the space of anyone, and I need the resources to be able to guide people
Mhm.
towards another community, another
Yeah, what they're
person, a
seeking.
practitioner, to make sure that everyone is basically taking care of themselves the best way possible.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I want to ask you, speak to our audience. And
Yeah.
if somebody was trying to figure out life, as we all are, right? Nobody's perfect. We don't have it figured out, period. It all changes, it's all fluid. We're never the same person in the same time period. What is something that you can tell our listeners that could possibly help them understand themselves and their identity a little bit better?
There's several exercises, but there's something that I find really fascinating. Go to your kitchen, open your fridge or your cupboard, and think about the three things that you can't live without. You really want in your fridge, the three things that you really want in your cupboards. Tell me where that's from. Tell
Hmm.
me who put this in place. Tell me who cooked it for you. Was it a family recipe? In that case, does it come from a close member or further away? Does it come from your region, the region where you're born or the region where you live? Does it come from a trip that you took when you were little, a trip that you took when you were an adult, and you brought back this element with you? Does does it come from family? Does it come from friends? Does it come from you? A just give it a thought and just ask yourself, why is this here? So I'm going to give you a very simple example. I don't think I've ever been in a house. I'd never lived in a place without a bottle of olive oil. That's because most of my family is from the southern part of Europe, Spain and Corsica and Italy and the south of France. And olive oil is just part of the Mediterranean diet. But somehow, strangely, there's also always butter in my fridge. And that's slightly odd for a Mediterranean type of person. And that's because part of my family is from the southern part of the Alps and they use butter.
Mm.
So if you think about your identity that way, there's a reason in France for people using unsalted butter or salted butter. And usually it comes from the places they were raised or born
Mm.
or live, because sometimes you just happen to live in a country and you adopt something. Something becomes relevant to you and your identity, and you integrate it. So the olive oil and the butter clearly comes from my taste, of course, but my family.
Mhm.
If you look at my spice shelves, there are spices in my shelves that would never have been found in any other members of my family. And that's because I love traveling. I love experimenting with food, and those things I brought in my house. Those things I give to my children to discover, to see if they like it, if they don't. So when you look at simple things like food, they can be a lot of memories associated with it. There can be a lot of identity rooted into it.
Mhm.
Give it a go.
I like that exercise. That's really interesting to think about. I always talk about identity being passed down from generation to generation, right?
Mhm.
And what we receive from our mothers, they receive from their mothers, who receive from their mothers. And it all comes back to us. And that's kind of connected in what you just said. Like what is in my fridge, it might be similar to what is in my mother's fridge. I might have some similarities, right? But there are different things too. And those different things come from me and my travels and my
Yeah.
explorations and my curiosities. And those are the things that are going to be passed on to my children.
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
that's why I mentioned before, identity to me is this collision point between what has been given to you and what you brought in. So,
Mhm.
and that's why it's fluid. That's why it's constructed. That's why you can play with your identity, because if there's something
Mhm.
you disagree with, you can interact with it. You can transform it. And this is a metamorphosis, right? It's just play with what you've been given.
Yeah.
And yeah, so your identity is your own little art project.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you, Celia. I really enjoyed having you on today. All the insights you gave about archaeology, it kind of fueled my curious side again to go learn more. Because you seem to be a lifelong learner. Like that is where
Yeah.
your passion is. And that's just a reminder to myself in this stage of my life to continue to be curious, continue to seek out answers and ask questions to people that you know or people that you just get connected to because you came into my inbox and I was like, this sounds wonderful. Let's come together. And I think a lot of people might be afraid to connect with people that they don't know. I
Yeah.
would encourage everyone listening to seek people that
Yeah.
you don't know, connect with
Yeah.
people that you don't know.
Yeah. Be playful, be curious, keep that going.
Uh-huh, because I think that is part of the fluidity of identity.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
Now,
so
if somebody wanted to get a hold of you because what you said resonated with them, how can they do that?
Right. So I have a website. It's Archaeology for Wellbeing. I am on LinkedIn. So professionally, I find it easier to connect on LinkedIn. And if you like just a bit of inspiration or daily inspiration, I'm on Instagram, and it's Arc for Wellbeing. And I actually genuinely like talking to people, like
Yeah,
chatting.
me
So
too.
don't hesitate. Send me an email, send me a question. I will answer. I am lucky enough, in a way, to be able to answer everyone personally. And so when you're talking on any of my socials or website or emails, you're talking to me. So you can go for it.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you got to be on the show today. And I look forward to future connections and seeing how you can help me understand through archaeology so I can use that concept in some of my therapeutic practices because I
Oh,
think
love
there's
that.
value behind it.
Brilliant. Thank you so
Yes. Well,
much for having me.
thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We will catch you next time on Untamed and Unapologetic. Have a great day.